Okay, so we're live. It's now 1 o'clock, and I've been staring at the screen like a moron for about 6 seconds, I think, while it starts on this YouTube thing. But thanks for tuning in here. This is where the live streams are going to be happening from now on. If you can just give me an indication about, the volume, if you guys can hear me in the live chat, and if the volume's crappy, then I'll make a plan. But yeah, today I want to talk about lockdown conspiracy theories, and there's quite a few of them going around, and a lot of them make sense to me in a weird way. So are they really conspiracy theories, or do they just make sense? So we're talking about NHI, the National Health Insurance. We're talking about EWC, which is expropriation without compensation. And we're talking about, the National Democratic Revolution, the ANC's, it really is a policy document for them. And how all these things tie in with comments that politicians are making in the media about nationalizing the Reserve Bank, nationalizing commercial banks, coming after private property, all these sorts of weird and wonderful things that actually have been going on for quite some time. None of this is new to the ANC. None of this is new to South Africa. So let's start off with a couple of scenarios, in the sense that you owe money on your house, quite likely. There are millions of South Africans with home loans right now, and millions of South Africans that can't generate an income because your business is not deemed to be essential. I'm going to say essential in inverted commas, because quite frankly, every business is essential. Every business is essential to somebody, because if it weren't essential, it wouldn't exist in the first place. So you end up with millions of people who can't service their home loans. You end up with tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of businesses that can't service their commercial loans to the banks. The banks now sit with huge amounts of money owed to them that they can't get. So they have all these properties on their books that are effectively worthless for them. They can't liquidate them. They can't auction them off. They can do nothing with them, because guess what? If you try to auction millions of houses and tens of thousands of businesses in a depressed market after a lockdown recession, who's going to buy? There's going to be nobody with the capital to even if anyone does buy a house here or there on an auction, it'll be a drop in the ocean. It's not going to make any difference. So what can the government do? What's the conspiracy theories? Well, you nationalize the banks. You bail them out, but the price of bailing them out when the entire banking sector collapses is you nationalize them. So what happens now? Now the government, strictly speaking, owns all those. They own all those properties that are on the banks' books, because they've taken those assets on as their own. So you've already expropriated property without compensating anybody for it. Now all you've got a problem. That's kind of where the conspiracy theory runs into a bit of a problem, because how do you evict millions of people from their houses that the government now owns, and in order to redistribute those properties to whomever is deemed to be the politically desired group to have them redistributed to, especially since the vast majority of these properties are already owned by the black middle class. So it runs out of steam a little bit there from that point of view. But let's also not forget that the ANC is a socialist Marxist organization in 2020. They don't actually care if they dispossess a black person of their property. They've done it before. I mean, there was that case in Limpopo where a black farmer took over a piece of government-owned land. He turned it into a massive success story. I can't even remember what he farmed with. He repaired all the tractors, repaired the buildings. He started exporting his crop. And when his lease expired, the government was just like, okay, dude, we're not renewing it. We're taking your farm and we're giving it to your farm workers. And it's been a complete disaster since then. So just because he was a black farmer made no difference there. He was a black farmer, but he wasn't connected with the right people, or it wasn't politically expedient to allow him to be a success. So let's not forget that race won't get in the way of the ANC doing what they believe they need to do. It's not something that's ever stopped them from doing a bad idea. It's like this BE criteria for small and medium enterprises getting assistance. If you're a white-owned business and you employ 10 to 20 black employees, and you can't get assistance, and you close down, you've screwed the white guy out of his business, but you screwed those 10 to 20 black employees of him and all their families and dependents out of their income at the same time, which forms kind of, that already illustrates to me that regardless of how terrible the consequences are going to be for black people in South Africa, the ANC will never walk away from socialist policies, from this Marxist rhetoric. They will hurt as many black people as it takes for them to show that they are committed to transformation, which is a cruel, bitter irony. You know, we are going to transform the nation, forcefully transform it, and we don't care how many black people we kill in the process. That's what the ANC is saying. So that's one way of expropriating people's property without compensation. Remember, a lot of farms are also have a lot of debt. A lot of farms also servicing bonds. How do you get those farms? Well, you nationalize the banks that they owe money to. Those books or those assets come onto the books of whichever national entity has now nationalized the banks. But before you can do that, before you can actually do stuff like this, you either have to create a state-owned bank that's going to bail all the other banks out, which I don't think there's scope for in South African monetary policy right now, or you have to nationalize the South African Reserve Bank, which they've been talking about doing for ages, but they haven't actually done it yet. So until they nationalize the SORB, or they create this magic state-owned bank with what money, I don't know, it's not going to happen. Regardless, if you're going to bail commercial banks out in South Africa when the entire sector inevitably collapses, because I don't see any way around that, unless you got money from outside, we're going to be having to switch on the printing presses. What happens when you switch on the printing press? Inflation happens. So we have high levels of unemployment, 50% or higher. We've got the printing press running, which leads to hyperinflation. So it's a real Charlie Foxtrot. I'm just going to swear and call it a clusterfuck. My audience is nice and mature. You guys can handle a little bit of foul language. So segueing off that into the whole NHI thing, the National Health Insurance, segueing away from expropriation without compensation, NHI just really is another form of EWC. You're just expropriating something else, which is healthcare. So being very closely acquainted with many doctors and health professionals and healthcare professionals in SA, a great many of them are sitting with either without an income right now because elective surgeries and elective work isn't happening and emergency work's drying up. Paramedics are getting retrenched because there's nothing for them to do. Like, we really flattened that curve, the GDP curve, but who cares? Or a great many medical professionals are sitting at like reduced incomes, like 20 to 30% of what they normally earn, if not less than that. So we have medical practices that are running out of money. If you've got a radiology practice and you own an MRI scanner, that's several million rands worth of equipment there that you need to pay off. Any other medical equipment, medical practices have overheads. If they can't service those overheads and the practice becomes insolvent and then it becomes illiquid, then it has to close doors, right? So how many private medical practitioners are going to close their practices? How many of those practices are going to close their doors? They're no longer paying the hospitals for floor space or rent or whatever. So the hospital groups are getting into financial trouble. Who's going to come and bail the hospital groups out? Who's going to buy an empty hospital where there are no healthcare practitioners practicing? And let's not think that the state's going to foot this bill here, because what's the point of studying medicine if you're not going to be allowed to ever go into private practice and you're going to turn into a South African version of a Cuban doctor where a taxi driver out-earns you? These are all, so they can get NHI implemented by just nationalizing the entire private sector, by allowing the private sector to go bankrupt, creating a state-owned financial institution that then pays the money and gets the assets for nothing because the money's printed and fiat currency is worthless. These are the types of conspiracies going around, and they're not all tinfoil hat type stuff. I think there are genuine concerns raised by thinking people about the sort of tyrannical state overreach into the private sector and to private lives and into private property. And this is all part of the ANC's National Democratic Revolution. Now, the NDR in a nutshell, I can summarize it in a single sort of paragraph by saying, or sentence even, that it's the centralized state control of all aspects of social and economic life. That's why they're cracking down on alcohol, where the Sufi says silly things. We would not want alcohol to become legal again after the lockdown is lifted, and why they have this moral panic and almost moral warfare on cigarettes. I mean, I don't smoke, but I mean, I think it's stupid and it's irrational and unreasonable to ban the things. I mean, all that you're feeding is a black market, which, the participants of which are very closely connected with Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. I mean, that's not even a secret anymore. That was in the President's Keepers by Mr. Poe, as well as Mandy Wiener's book about, I can't even remember the title of it, but it's really good, about criminals and state capture. So none of the stuff's new that I'm telling you. It's already there. It's just all the pieces are connected. Now we have to start wondering, is Cyril Ramaphosa still our president? Because we saw him in a little watered down 1st of May Day, Workers' Day address. He told us cigarettes are coming back. He was immediately contradicted literally a day or two later by NDZ. And she hasn't been disciplined. She hasn't been recalled. She hasn't been made stage. I mean, it sure as hell doesn't look like it to me. And it could very well be that we've already reached a situation where there has been a coup d'etat within the ANC, and they've just kind of run roughshod over their own leadership base, for want of a better word. So do we still have a president? Is that president still Cyril Ramaphosa? Why did Zuma why is he not contesting his court case anymore? All these little dots one can start connecting while we are locked up in our homes under forcible house arrest. In the meantime, more and more businesses are going bankrupt every single day, every single hour. I see hotels not opening doors again. I see restaurants that aren't going to be opening doors again. I see restaurants that are burning down. And no, I'm not going to indulge the theory that all of a sudden all these restaurant owners are burning their own restaurants down to collect on insurance. I honestly don't think they're stupid enough to do that. And besides, there's been 1,000 cases of vandalism where schools have been burnt down nationwide, if not more than that. So who knows? Who knows why these restaurants are burning down at the moment? But it's happening. Let me just check what you guys are saying in the comments. Just as a matter of interest, please try and get more people to tune in on the YouTube channel. I want to take my Facebook or rather reduce my dependency on Facebook. It's not after getting shadow banned for a week and the viewership and the post engagement is dropping through the floor. I really info, little tab in the corner, a little block where you just fill your email address and that goes onto a secure database and I can contact you guys, and you are then subscribed to when my articles come. You will see them. So please do that. Tonight also at 18:30, the CHS bunker is talking to Walt from Wild Medics, and Walt's good people. He will be giving good advice. It's a sort of stuff post-lockdownia that we kind of need to hear about first aid, trauma aid, how to compile trauma kits, first aid kits, the good stuff. So please tune into that. That's also why I moved my live stream with Stefan Meyer tomorrow night at 7 o'clock to talk about, prostitute myself out a little bit here. I have been involved with CHS Guns for a long time. I will be helping out CHS Bunker with some marketing. They will issue me with a promo code. And when that's set up, I'll let you know. And then if you use that promo code to buy stuff from them, I will get a share of that product sold. It'll help me keep the channel going. It'll help me keep the blog going. It'll help me pay for my hosting. It'll make a big difference, especially since I'm, for all practical intents and purposes, unemployed. So please check that out. Thank you. And Sean Murphy, that farmer probably refused to pay the kickbacks to the right people to do the paperwork. Which farmer was that, Sean? I missed the previous comment that you might be commenting on. Cyril says Cyril says it was a collective decision to ban cigarettes. Let me see if I can pop that onto the screen. I don't know if I actually have the ability to do that. No, I don't, which sucks. But anyway. Not ministers doing as they want was his direct quote. Yeah, I saw that from our president backpedaling something fierce because, he's now being called out as not having any control of his own cabinet. That's hardly a newsflash. We know that Cyril Ramaphosa isn't a strong leader. We know he's weak and he's barely surviving. And to be honest, I'm kind of surprised he has made it this far with him flip-flopping all over the show. I think it's also important to not forget that to Cyril Ramaphosa, the ANC comes first, not the country. In case anyone forgot that's how the stuff works. Ooh, this thing's, there we go, it's a little bit better. Rick McNamee, Zuma must fall season 2. Yes, we'd have to come up with something Rama fuck off out of here. I don't know, something like that. Enough chat. Short decision on gun rights involving. So yeah, that's 2,000 signatures to ban, 2,000 signatures to protect our gun rights. They don't even, they're not even listening to 400,000 people who have done other than the NEC. The NEC goes as the political winds blow, and that's a drama that we have right now. And the experts, the medical experts, the scientists are not being listened to by whatever this command council is being called. That's why level 4 lockdown, it looks exactly, you've heard me say this on the channel a million times before, and that's why the hydroponics is no idea why it's telling me my connection's unstable. It's supposed to be a 100 megabyte per second line, so I will get sorted out before tomorrow night with Stefan, so we don't have this issue again. But that's pretty much the live stream for now, guys. I just wanted to check in, have a brief discussion on those topics, and we'll see how it goes from here. Thanks for tuning in. Oh God, I can't believe I say that. That's the usual YouTube comment thing, but please have instead of just doing the usual stuff. And I'll see you guys tomorrow night, and hopefully the connection.